Chosen one, why does it feel like God has forgotten your address? Why have your prayers been echoing in what seems like empty air for months, maybe years? Why do you wake up at 3 a.m. with this gnawing sense that time is running out and you're still waiting for that breakthrough he promised? Stop, right there. What if I told you that every unanswered prayer, every sleepless night, every moment you felt invisible to heaven, was actually God holding you back from something that would have destroyed you? What if your delay wasn't his denial but his protection? Maybe you were just scrolling through your phone, sitting in that same worn chair where you've whispered 1,000 desperate prayers, or lying in your bed wondering if anyone, even God, really sees you anymore. But this moment, this message finding you right now, this wasn't an accident. Heaven orchestrated this interruption. You didn't stumble onto this video. You were summoned. I need to tell you something that's going to shake everything you think you know about timing, about waiting, about why your story seems stuck while others are moving forward. The second week of August 2025 isn't just another collection of days on your calendar. It's a prophetic gate, a divine threshold, a spiritual turning point that's been marked in heaven's ledger since before you took your first breath. And if you're listening to my voice right now, if something in your chest is stirring, if your spirit is leaning forward, even though your mind is skeptical, it means you were chosen to hear this. Have you felt it lately? That restlessness that won't let you sleep? That sense that something massive is shifting in the spiritual realm, but you can't quite name it? Have you noticed your dreams becoming more vivid, more urgent? Have you felt like a stranger in your own life? Like you're about to outgrow everything familiar? That's not your imagination, that's recognition. Your soul recognizing that the season of waiting is about to end. Before we go deeper into this prophetic word, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Holy Spirit lead your heart. But here's what I need you to understand. This second week of August carries a weight that will either crush what's holding you back or elevate you into your destiny. There's no middle ground, no casual observers. You're either about to break through or break down under the pressure of refusing to change. If your spirit already knows this is for you, if something inside you is saying, "Yes, this is my moment," type, "I'm listening" in the comments. Say it out loud. That's not for me, it's for heaven. It's your agreement with what God is about to release. The wait is almost over, chosen one. But are you ready for what comes next? Why does the air feel different when you wake up lately? Why does time itself seem to be holding its breath? Why do you sense something massive stirring in the spiritual realm, something so significant that even your dreams are becoming more vivid, more urgent, more prophetic? Because, dear one, we've crossed a threshold that most people don't even realize exists. August 2025 isn't just another month on your calendar. It's not just 31 ordinary days sandwiched between July and September. What we've stepped into is what the ancient Greeks called Kairos time, God's appointed time, when the eternal breaks through the temporal like lightning splitting the night sky. You've felt it, haven't you? That strange electricity in the atmosphere, that sense that invisible forces are moving, aligning, preparing for something unprecedented. Your spirit has been restless because it recognizes what your mind hasn't yet grasped. We are living in the fulfillment of Acts 2:17. "And it shall come to pass in the last days, says God, that I will pour out of my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions." This isn't poetic language, beloved. This is prophetic reality unfolding before our very eyes. Right now, in your lifetime. In your golden years when the world tells you to step back, God is calling you to step forward into the greatest spiritual awakening America has ever witnessed. But here's what's shaking me to my core. Most people are sleepwalking through the most significant prophetic moment in human history. They're treating August like it's just another hot summer month, another page to flip on the calendar. They have no idea they're standing on holy ground. The veil between heaven and earth is thinning. Can you feel it? That gossamer barrier that usually separates the seen from the unseen, the natural from the supernatural, is becoming as fragile as morning mist. And when that veil tears completely, which it will, very soon everything changes. Think about Moses on Mount Sinai. Exodus 34-29 tells us that when he came down from meeting with God face to face, his skin was so radiant that the Israelites couldn't even look at him. The veil between heaven and earth had thinned so dramatically in his presence that the glory of the Almighty was literally radiating through human flesh. That same thinning is happening now. But instead of one man on one mountain, it's happening to thousands of chosen ones scattered across this nation. Senior saints who've been praying faithfully for decades. Elderly believers who've carried burdens in secret, interceding for families, for communities, for America itself. You think your prayers have gone unanswered? You think your decades of faithfulness have been overlooked? You couldn't be more wrong. Every tear you've shed in your prayer closet, every midnight cry for this nation's healing, every whispered plea for your prodigal children, it's all been accumulating in heaven's throne room like incense in golden bowls. And now, in August 2025, those prayers are about to be poured out as answers so miraculous, so undeniable, that even the skeptics will have to acknowledge God's hand. But why August? Why now? Why you? Because God doesn't operate on human schedules. He operates on prophetic timing. And according to his divine calendar, this month specifically, the second week carries an electromagnetic charge unlike anything we've experienced in our lifetimes. The spiritual atmosphere is being supercharged with heaven's power, and those who are sensitive to the Spirit can feel it building like pressure before a storm. Daniel understood this principle when he received his visions. Daniel 10:14 records the angel telling him, "Now I have come to make you understand what will happen to your people in the latter days." For the vision refers to many days yet to come. The revelation wasn't just for Daniel's generation, it was for ours. You are living in the many days yet to come that Daniel saw in his visions. The latter days aren't some distant future concept. They're happening now, today, this month, this week. There's one day coming this week where time itself will seem to bend. You'll know it when it arrives because something sacred will brush against your skin like a whisper made of starlight. The mundane will suddenly feel holy. Colors will seem brighter. Sounds will carry deeper meaning. And for just a moment, you'll remember who you really are, not just a senior citizen counting down remaining years, but an eternal being temporarily wrapped in flesh, carrying assignments from heaven itself. Isaiah 60:1 declared it centuries ago. "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon you." That light isn't coming, beloved. It's here. It's now. It's rising upon the very generation that everyone else has written off as finished. But here's the part that should terrify every force of darkness. You're not just witnessing this prophetic moment, you're participating in it. Your prayers aren't just being answered. They're becoming weapons of mass destruction against every principality that has held this nation in bondage. The enemy made one fatal miscalculation. He thought if he could convince you that you were too old, too tired, too irrelevant, he could neutralize heaven's most seasoned warriors. But what he didn't realize is that your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Your years aren't your weakness, they're your spiritual credentials. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver Israel. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to nations. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over the Messiah. Your golden years aren't your decline, they're your activation. So when you feel that stirring in your spirit this week, when you sense invisible currents moving through your very bones, when you find yourself waking at odd hours with your heart racing for no apparent reason, don't dismiss it. Don't explain it away as anxiety or insomnia. That's the sound of heaven's alarm clock, and it's ringing specifically for you. But what exactly is God calling you to do with this unprecedented access to His presence? What happens when the veil doesn't just thin but tears completely open? Have you been tired without reason lately? Bone-deep tired that 8 hours of sleep can't touch? Are you waking up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., your mind racing with thoughts you can't quite catch? Have you been losing interest in things that once brought you joy? The morning coffee tastes flat, conversations feel shallow, even your favorite TV shows feel meaningless. Listen to me carefully, dear one. You are not losing your mind. You are not getting old. You are not broken. You are being disrupted, divinely disrupted. What you're experiencing isn't dysfunction, it's sacred interruption. It's God stirring the soil of your soul, because something magnificent can't grow in ground that's been hardened by years of disappointment, routine, and spiritual sedation. Right now, at 70, 75, 80 years old, when the world tells you to settle into your golden years quietly, heaven is saying something completely different. Heaven is saying, wake up. Your assignment isn't finished. Your greatest chapter hasn't been written yet. But awakening never feels comfortable, does it? Think about Lazarus, 4 days dead, wrapped in grave clothes, sealed in a tomb. Everyone had given up. Everyone had moved on. The funeral was over. The tears had dried. And then Jesus showed up and called his name. Lazarus, come forth. But here's what they don't tell you. In Sunday school, Lazarus didn't leap out of that tomb dancing. He had to be unwrapped. The grave clothes had to be removed piece by piece. The bindings that held him in death had to be cut away before he could walk in life. That's exactly what's happening to you right now. Every sleepless night is God cutting away another piece of spiritual grave cloth. Every moment you feel restless, disconnected from your old routines, that's another binding being removed. Every time you look in the mirror and think, I don't recognize myself anymore, that's because you're not the same person who entered this season. You thought the depression was defeat. It was deliverance. You thought the loneliness was punishment. It was preparation. You thought the financial struggles were failures. They were freedom from false securities. Remember Joseph in Genesis, 17 years old with dreams of greatness, only to be thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, forgotten in prison for years. Every step looked like devastation. Every door seemed to close with a thunderous slam. But Genesis 50-20 reveals the master plan. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done. You thought the pit was punishment. It was a portal. Every betrayal that left you questioning God's goodness portal. Every diagnosis that shook your faith portal. Every loss that made you feel forgotten portal. Every closed door that made you wonder if you'd missed your calling portal to something greater than you could have imagined in your comfort. Look at your life right now. Really look at it. The relationships that have shifted, the interests that have changed, the peace you feel in solitude that once terrified you, the way you've stopped caring about impressing people who never really knew you anyway. This isn't isolation. This is incubation. You're in the cocoon stage of a butterfly that doesn't even know it's about to fly. Inside that dark, seemingly suffocating space, every cell of your being is being restructured. The caterpillar doesn't just grow wings, it literally dissolves into soup before reforming into something that can soar. That's why everything feels so uncertain right now. That's why your old identity feels foreign. You're not falling apart, beloved. You're falling into divine alignment. But here's what's urgent about this second week of August 2025. The restructuring is almost complete. The disruption that's been happening in private is about to manifest in public. The internal transformation is about to become external demonstration. And if you fight this process, if you try to crawl back into the caterpillar skin that no longer fits, you'll miss the flight pattern God has been preparing you for your entire life. Moses spent 40 years in the desert thinking he was finished. David hid in caves while carrying the anointing of a king. Paul was struck blind on the Damascus road before becoming the greatest apostle. Jesus himself disappeared for 18 years, between age 12 and 30. The Bible is silent about those years because some preparation happens in secret. Your secret season is ending. Your public season is beginning. The restlessness you feel isn't random anxiety, it's divine anticipation. Your spirit knows something your mind hasn't figured out yet. There's a shift coming that will make sense of every tear, every prayer, every moment you felt like giving up but didn't, that physical exhaustion you've been carrying. It's not your body failing, it's your body making room for a different kind of energy. The kind that comes from alignment instead of striving. The kind that flows from purpose instead of panic. Those moments when you look at your life and think, how did I get here? This isn't what I planned. That's because God's plans are higher than your plans. His ways are beyond your ways. And sometimes the detour was always the destination. Right now, as I speak these words, something is shifting in the atmosphere around your life. Angels are repositioning. Doors are creaking open that have been sealed for decades. Divine appointments are being arranged for the second week of August that will leave you speechless at God's precision. But you have to stop resisting the disruption. You have to stop mourning the old version of yourself. You have to stop apologizing for outgrowing relationships, situations, and mindsets that were never meant to contain the fullness of who you're becoming. Isaiah 43:18-19 declares, "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" The new thing isn't just coming, it's already sprouting. The question is, will you perceive it? Or will you keep looking backward at what was never meant to be your final destination? Because what's waiting for you in this prophetic window isn't just personal breakthrough, it's generational transformation that will echo through your family line for decades to come. But first, you need to understand why this particular week carries such supernatural weight. Your sleep hasn't been broken lately. It's been briefed. Those restless nights aren't insomnia, they're invitations. Dreams aren't background noise from your subconscious, they're bulletins from heaven, and the messages are getting more urgent by the day. Let me ask you something that might shake you to your core. What if every strange dream you've had in the past month wasn't random? What if those vivid nightmares, those faces you don't recognize but somehow know, those places you've never been but feel homesick for, what if all of it was God preparing you for what's coming in the second week of August? You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? You've been waking up with your heart pounding, fragments of something important, slipping away like water through your fingers. You've been lying there at 4 a.m. wondering if you're losing your mind, or if maybe, just maybe, heaven is trying to download something into your spirit that your logical mind isn't equipped to process. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your dreams have become a battlefield, and you're winning more than you realize. Think about Joseph. Genesis 37 tells us he had dreams that seemed impossible, even dangerous to share. His own brothers wanted to kill him because of what he saw in his sleep. But those dreams weren't just nighttime entertainment, they were prophetic blueprints of his destiny. 20 years later, standing before Pharaoh, interpreting dreams that would save nations, Joseph realized every symbol, every vision, every strange midnight message had been preparation. But here's where it gets personal for you, dear one. Daniel chapter 2 reveals something profound about how God communicates. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him. God doesn't just speak in the sunshine of your waking hours. He whispers his deepest secrets in the darkness, when your defenses are down, when your analytical mind finally stops arguing with your spirit. Have you been dreaming about water lately? Floods, oceans, rivers that seem familiar but you can't place them. That's not random. Water in dreams often represents the flow of God's Spirit. And if you're seeing it repeatedly, heaven is showing you that a spiritual flood is coming. Not to destroy, but to cleanse, to carry you to higher ground. What about dreams of flying? Of being lifted above circumstances that once trapped you? Your spirit already knows what your mind is still catching up to. You're about to be elevated beyond everything that's been holding you back. And those dreams where you're searching for something, walking through endless hallways, looking for a door that seems to keep moving. That's not anxiety, beloved. That's your soul rehearsing for the breakthrough that's coming. The door you've been seeking is about to reveal itself, and when it does, you'll recognize it instantly because you've been dreaming about it for weeks. But dreams aren't the only way heaven has been reaching you, are they? Have you felt those sudden urges lately? That inexplicable pull to call someone you haven't spoken to in years? That strange compulsion to take a different route home, only to discover later that your usual path was blocked by an accident? That sudden desire to clean out closets, to organize, to prepare your space like you're expecting someone important? Those aren't coincidences. Those are divine nudges from a God who's orchestrating your life with precision that would make a Swiss watchmaker weep. You've been having conversations in your head with people who aren't there, practicing words for situations that haven't happened yet. Your family might think you're talking to yourself, but you're not. You're rehearsing with the Holy Spirit, preparing for divine appointments that are already scheduled in heaven's calendar. The prophet Joel saw this moment. Joel 2:28 declares, "I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your old men will dream dreams, your young men will see visions." This isn't just ancient prophecy, this is your current reality. You're not too old to receive fresh vision from God. You're exactly the right age to handle the weight of what He's about to reveal. But here's the part that might terrify you. Those strange urges you've been feeling, that restlessness that makes you want to change everything about your life overnight, that's not a midlife crisis or senior confusion. That's your spirit, recognizing that the version of you who's been content with status quo is about to expire. God has been whispering in your dreams because your waking hours have been too cluttered with noise, too filled with the voices of people who don't understand your calling, too crowded with the demands of a world that wants to keep you small and manageable. Have you noticed that certain numbers keep appearing everywhere you look? 11 on the clock, $7, 77 on your receipt. Address numbers that make you pause and wonder why they feel significant. The God who numbered the hairs on your head is speaking through the mathematics of your daily life, confirming that nothing, absolutely nothing, is random anymore. Your heightened sensitivity lately isn't weakness, it's calibration. You've been feeling others' emotions more deeply, sensing spiritual atmospheres the moment you walk into a room, knowing things about people before they speak. That's not psychic ability, that's prophetic awareness awakening in your spirit. Because God needs intercessors who can feel what He feels, who can pray for things before they become visible crises. Even your physical body has been responding to this spiritual acceleration. Sudden energy at times when you should be tired. Unexpected strength to handle situations that would have overwhelmed you months ago. Your very cells are being rewired to carry what's coming. If you've been dreaming strange dreams, seeing repeated signs, feeling urges you can't explain, you're not alone. Right, I've seen it in the comments if you've been sensing things that don't make logical sense but feel absolutely true in your spirit. Let this community of awakened souls find each other, because what's coming in the second week of August will require all of us to be spiritually alert and divinely connected. But I have to ask you this. Are you going to keep dismissing these divine communications as coincidence? Or are you finally ready to accept that heaven has been preparing you for something that's about to change everything? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to reveal will shatter everything you thought you knew about divine timing. This isn't just another week on your calendar. This is the week heaven has been orchestrating your entire life toward. You see, most people think God works in seasons, spring, summer, fall, winter. But that's human thinking. God works in moments, appointed moments, kairos moments. And the second week of August 2025 is one of those moments that will split your life into before and after. Have you felt it building? That pressure in your chest that won't go away, that restlessness that keeps you pacing your living room at midnight, that sudden inability to tolerate things you've been putting up with for years. That's not anxiety, dear one. That's your spirit recognizing its appointment with destiny. The 4th of August will feel like a release. Something that's been locked inside your soul for decades will finally exhale. You might find yourself crying without knowing why, or laughing at something that would have triggered you last month. Don't dismiss it as emotional instability. This is spiritual stability finally taking hold. The 5th of August will shake something loose. Old agreements you made with fear, ancient contracts you signed with limitation, generational patterns that have been running your bloodline like invisible software. They're about to be deleted from your system permanently. But here's what most people won't tell you. Here's what the comfortable Christians don't want to hear. This isn't chaos you're feeling, it's consecration. God is setting you apart, and separation always feels violent to the parts of you that were never meant to make the journey. Your GPS may glitch this week. I'm not speaking metaphorically. Your actual GPS might reroute you down streets you've never seen, leading you to encounters that will redirect your destiny. Lights may flicker in your home, not because of electrical issues, but because the atmosphere around you is charged with supernatural voltage. Your dog may bark at empty corners, sensing angelic activity your natural eyes can't perceive. Don't dismiss it. Don't rationalize it. Don't medicate it. The veil between heaven and earth is paper thin right now, and you're standing in the convergence zone. Isaiah 43:19 thunders with prophetic authority. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. The new thing isn't coming, beloved. It's springing up right now, in real time, in your real life. But here's where it gets personal. Here's where your faith gets tested in ways Sunday school never prepared you for. You've been praying for breakthrough, begging for change, crying out for something different. Well, different is here. And it doesn't look like the gentle, comfortable transformation you imagined. Real transformation feels like death before it feels like life. It feels like losing your mind before you find your purpose. It feels like everything familiar is being stripped away because God can't pour new wine into old wineskins. How many more years are you going to let fear masquerade as wisdom? How many more decades are you going to settle for the sanitized version of Christianity that never asks you to risk anything? How much longer will you keep God in a box marked safe when He's calling you to walk on water that will either drown your doubt or elevate your faith? The 2nd week of August isn't just a shift, it's a script. And heaven is waiting to see if you'll co-author the rest of it, or keep reading from the tired, predictable lines you've been reciting for years. Habakkuk 2-3 cuts through every excuse. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. Your appointed time isn't someday, it's now. This week. These exact 7 days that feel different because they are different. And I know what some of you are thinking. But I'm 73 years old. I'm 86. My time has passed. God uses young people for big things. That's the biggest lie the enemy ever whispered in your ear. Moses was 80 when he stood before Pharaoh. Sarah was 90 when she birthed nations. Your wrinkles aren't disqualifications. They're qualifications. Your age isn't a limitation, it's your authority. Every tear you've cried in secret, heaven collected them in bottles. Every prayer you whispered in the dark, they've been building pressure in the spirit realm like a dam about to burst. Every moment you felt forgotten, God was actually positioning you for this exact moment when your faithfulness would be rewarded with supernatural acceleration. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul. Windows don't stay open forever. Doors don't wait indefinitely. Divine appointments have expiration dates, and the appointment slip in your hand has this week's date on it. Revelation 5-8 shows us something profound. Each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of God's holy people. Your prayers haven't disappeared into thin air. They've been collected, stored, concentrated into golden bowls before God's throne. And this week, those bowls are being poured out as answers. You've been asking God to move in your life. Well, He's moving. The question isn't whether God is ready. The question is whether you're brave enough to move with Him when He doesn't follow your timeline, your logic, or your comfort zone. If you know this message is calling you to attention, if something in your spirit is confirming that this week carries weight for your destiny, type today's date in the comments as your spiritual timestamp. Let heaven mark the moment you said yes to the unknown, yes to the uncomfortable, yes to the version of yourself that's been waiting decades to breathe. Because what happens in the next section will determine whether you spend the rest of 2025 wondering what could have been, or walking in the fullness of what God always intended for your life. Listen to me carefully, dear one. Your life hasn't been a series of random disasters. Every betrayal, every closed door, every moment when you felt like God had abandoned you in your darkest hour, it wasn't punishment, it was positioning. You've been living the Joseph principle, and you didn't even know it. Think about Joseph for a moment. 17 years old, carrying dreams that seemed impossible. His own brothers, his own flesh and blood, threw him into a pit and sold him like cattle. Genesis 37-28 tells us they sold him for 20 pieces of silver. 20 pieces. That's what his family thought he was worth. But here's what breaks my heart about your story. Chosen one. How many times have the people closest to you, your own family, your friends, people you trusted with your deepest wounds, how many times have they betrayed you? Sold you out? Thrown you into your own pit of rejection and abandonment? You were betrayed. So was Joseph. You were forgotten in your prison of pain. So was David, hiding in caves while King Saul hunted him like an animal. You were misunderstood, your motives questioned, your character assassinated. So was Jesus, rejected by his own hometown, abandoned by his disciples, crucified by the very people he came to save. But what if I told you something that's going to revolutionize how you see every scar on your soul? What if every pit was actually preparation? What if every prison was positioning? What if every moment you felt buried alive was actually God planting you for harvest? Joseph didn't know it in that dungeon, but every day of injustice was building the character he'd need to save nations. Genesis 50-20 reveals the master plan. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Your pain wasn't pointless. Your suffering wasn't senseless. Your wounds weren't wasted. Think about Esther, an orphan girl, parents dead, raised by her cousin Mordecai. Life had already dealt her a hand that looked like loss. But Esther 4:14 declares the truth that's been hidden in your story too. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this, not for easy times, not for comfortable seasons, but for this exact moment when everything looks impossible, when hope seems dead, when others have given up. That's when God reveals his hidden ones. You think you've been forgotten, but you've been hidden. You think you've been discarded, but you've been preserved. You think your best years are behind you, but heaven is saying your greatest assignment is still ahead. Look at Job. Everything stripped away. His wealth, his children, his health, even his wife telling him to curse God and die. Job 2-9. But in the darkest moment, when everything logical screamed that God had abandoned him, Job declared something that shook both heaven and hell. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. Job 13:15. That's not just faith. That's the sound of someone who's discovered that their foundation runs deeper than their circumstances. How many times have you been there? Standing in the ashes of everything you built, everything you loved, everything you thought defined you. How many nights have you whispered through tears, God, Where are you? Why is this happening to me? But what if those weren't the right questions? What if the question isn't why me? But why was I chosen to carry this weight? What if it isn't, when will this end? But what is this building in me that I'll need for what's coming? Daniel knew this secret, thrown into a den of hungry lions because his prayers threatened the political system. Daniel 6:16. But when morning came, the lions were lying down like house cats, and Daniel emerged without a scratch. Why? Because when you've been refined by fire, when you've been tested by betrayal, when you've survived what should have killed you, lions recognize royalty. Your survival wasn't luck. Your endurance wasn't just stubbornness. Every time you got back up when staying down would have been easier. Every time you chose forgiveness when bitterness was justified, every time you held on to God when letting go would have made sense. You were being forged into something unbreakable. Peter learned this the hard way. The man who walked on water, who declared Jesus as the Son of the living God, who swore he'd die before denying Christ. But when the pressure came, he crumbled. 3 times he denied even knowing Jesus. Luke 22:57. 3 times. But Jesus didn't throw him away. In John 21:17, after the resurrection, Jesus asked Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" Not to shame him, but to restore him. Because heaven doesn't discard wounded warriors, it promotes them. Peter's failure became his qualification to strengthen others who would stumble. Your failures haven't disqualified you. They've graduated you into a level of compassion that only comes through brokenness. Your scars aren't shame marks, they're credentials that give you authority to speak to other wounded souls and say, "I've been where you are, and God is still faithful." But here's what's going to shock you about this second week of August 2025. The same God who promoted Joseph from prisoner to prime minister in a single day, who elevated Esther from orphan to queen, who turned Job's mourning into dancing. He's about to do something similar in your life. You didn't survive by accident. Heaven preserved you. Because your role in what's coming is too important to cancel. Every betrayal was training you to trust God alone. Every closed door was teaching you that man's rejection is often God's protection. Every season of obscurity was preparing you for a level of visibility that required deep roots to sustain. Your history was the enemy's warning shot, but your future is heaven's proof that when God plants someone in the darkness, what grows up isn't defeated, it's dangerous to the kingdom of hell. The pit that was meant to bury you is about to become the platform that elevates you. But the question that will determine everything is this: will you finally see your pain as prophetic, or will you keep treating it as punishment? Now listen carefully. Chosen one. Understanding your calling isn't enough. Feeling the shift isn't enough. Even agreeing with heaven's timing isn't enough. Faith without works is dead, James 2:26 tells us. And right now, God is requiring action from you. Not someday, not when you feel ready. Today. You've spent decades waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect circumstances, the perfect clarity. But perfection isn't the currency of faith, obedience is. And obedience often looks like taking the next step when you can only see 2 feet in front of you. How many more years are you going to let fear masquerade as wisdom? How many more prophetic words are you going to receive and file away like spiritual souvenirs instead of acting on them? This second week of August isn't just another spiritual high, it's your marching orders from heaven itself. God told Moses in Exodus 14:15, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Not pray more, not fast longer. Move on." Sometimes the greatest act of faith isn't falling to your knees, it's getting off them and walking forward. Here's what's going to separate you from those who remain stuck in the same cycles, dreaming the same dreams, hoping for the same breakthroughs that never come. 3 prophetic activations that will align your spirit with heaven's frequency for this season. Not suggestions, requirements. First prophetic activation. Speak it aloud daily. Every morning when your feet hit the floor, Before you check your phone, before you pour your coffee, before you do anything else, you're going to speak these 4 words aloud. I'm in alignment. Not whisper, not think, speak out loud. Proverbs 18:21 declares, "The tongue has the power of life and death." Your voice carries creative power that your thoughts alone cannot access. When you speak alignment over yourself, you're not just making a statement, you're issuing a decree that reshapes reality around you. But here's what's going to challenge you. Your mind is going to resist. Your circumstances are going to contradict. Your feelings are going to argue. You might look around at your life and think, I'm in alignment? Really? With what? Everything's falling apart. That's exactly when you need to speak it louder. Because faith isn't about describing what is, it's about declaring what will be. When you speak alignment over chaos, chaos has to rearrange itself to match your words. Jesus stood at Lazarus's tomb and declared, "Lazarus, come out." John 11:43. He didn't analyze the situation. He didn't wait for better circumstances. He spoke to what he wanted to see, and death itself had to obey his voice. Your voice carries that same authority when it's aligned with God's will, but only when you use it. Second prophetic activation. Write a dream. Journal this week. Starting tonight, you're going to keep a notebook and pen beside your bed, not your phone, a physical notebook. When you wake up, whether it's 2 a.m. or 6 a.m., you're going to write down everything you can remember from your dreams. Don't filter it, don't interpret it, just write it. Colors, faces, emotions, fragments of conversation, strange images that make no logical sense, all of it. Joel 2:28 promises, "I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions." Dreams aren't just your subconscious processing the day they're downloads from heaven. But most people miss them because they never create space to receive them. This week, the spiritual atmosphere is charged with divine communication. God is speaking, but He's speaking in the language of symbols, metaphors, and spiritual impressions. Your dream journal isn't just a notebook, it's a receiver tuned to heaven's frequency. Here's what's going to shock you. By the end of this week, you're going to start seeing patterns, recurring symbols, consistent themes, messages that your logical mind couldn't construct, but your spirit immediately recognizes as truth. Daniel understood this principle. Daniel 2:19 tells us, "During the night the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. The mystery that saved his life and changed the course of empires came through a dream." Don't dismiss what God might be downloading to you while you sleep. Third, prophetic activation. Fast from noise for 48 hours. This is the activation that will separate the serious from the casual. For the next 48 hours, you're going to completely disconnect from all media. No news, no social media, no podcasts, no YouTube videos, except this message. No opinions from talking heads who profit from keeping you agitated and distracted. Exodus 33:11 says, "The Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend." But Moses had to leave the camp to hear God clearly. He had to separate himself from the noise and chaos of public opinion to receive divine instruction. Here's what's really happening when you're constantly consuming media. You're not staying informed, you're being programmed. Every voice you allow into your spirit is either aligning you with heaven's frequency or pulling you toward earth's chaos. For 48 hours, the only voice you're going to listen to is God's. In the silence, in the stillness, in the space between your thoughts where He whispers the secrets that reshape destinies. Isaiah 30:21 promises, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way. Walk in it.'" But you can't hear that voice when it's competing with 1,000 other voices screaming for your attention. This isn't about being uninformed. This is about being rightly aligned. And alignment requires separation from everything that contradicts heaven's perspective on your life. Your assignment, sealed in writing. Now here's your final activation, and this one is non-negotiable. Right now, not later, not tomorrow. Right now, you're going to get a piece of paper and a pen, not your phone, not your computer. Paper and pen. You're going to write these exact words. I agree with the assignment. I choose the alignment. Then you're going to sign it, date it, and keep it where you'll see it every day for the next 90 days. This isn't just positive thinking. This is a covenant, a contract between your will and God's will. When you write it down, you're creating a physical representation of a spiritual commitment that heaven takes seriously. Moses wrote the commandments on stone tablets because some truths are too important to trust to memory alone. Your agreement with God's assignment over your life needs to be written in permanent ink, not pencil that can be erased when circumstances get difficult. The gate is open, chosen one, but it won't stay open forever. This prophetic window has an expiration date, and hesitation is the enemy of breakthrough. Are you going to spend another year talking about what God might do, or are you finally ready to walk through the door He's opened specifically for you? Now I need to ask you something, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. What if I told you that the worst decade of your life wasn't God's punishment, but His preparation? You lost people who swore they'd never leave. You buried dreams that once made you jump out of bed every morning. You watched the world forget your name while others got the recognition you deserved. You sat in doctors' offices hearing words that made your blood run cold. You stared at bank statements wondering how you'd make it another month. You felt invisible, forgotten, discarded like yesterday's newspaper. But here's the raw truth that's going to cut deep before it heals. You've been living in the book of Daniel, chapter 3, and you didn't even know it. Remember Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? King Nebuchadnezzar built a golden statue 90 feet high and 9 feet wide, and commanded everyone to bow down and worship it. But these 3 Hebrew boys said something that shook both heaven and hell. We will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. Daniel 3:18. You know what happened next. The king was so furious he ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than normal. 7 times hotter. The soldiers who threw them in died from the heat before they could step back. But these 3 men walked around in that fire like they were taking a Sunday stroll in Central Park. That's been your life, hasn't it? The last 10 years haven't just been difficult, they've been 7 times hotter than what most people could survive. The betrayal from your own family, the diagnosis that came out of nowhere, the business that collapsed despite your best efforts, the spouse who walked out after 30 years, the children who stopped calling, the dreams that died slow, agonizing deaths. You were thrown into a furnace meant to destroy you. But something supernatural happened in that fire. You didn't burn, you became fireproof. Look at me. You thought it was punishment, but fire doesn't punish gold. It purifies it. It burns away everything that isn't precious, everything that isn't eternal, everything that was holding you back from your true value. That storm that nearly drowned you, it didn't break you. That betrayal that left you gasping for air, it didn't cancel you. That silence from heaven when you screamed for answers, it didn't bury you. That loss that felt like it would kill you, it didn't define you. Every single fire was ordained, not by the enemy, though he lit the match, but by a God who knew exactly what temperature was needed to forge you into something unbreakable. You want to know why the last 10 years had to happen? Because the assignment coming in this second week of August 2025 requires someone who's been through hell and came out praising God. It requires someone who's learned to worship in the furnace, to trust when they can't see, to stand when everything around them is falling apart. The comfortable never change the world. The untested never lead revolutions. The unbroken never heal the broken. Isaiah 43:2 declares it with precision. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. But notice the promise isn't that you won't go through the fire. The promise is that you won't be consumed by it. Every night you cried yourself to sleep. God was there. Every time you felt like giving up, He was whispering strength into your bones. Every moment when you should have broken but somehow didn't, that wasn't your willpower. That was divine intervention. The enemy thought he was destroying your faith, but he was actually proving it. He thought he was breaking your spirit, but he was actually building your endurance. He thought he was isolating you from God, but he was actually eliminating every distraction so you could hear his voice more clearly. You've been refined by suffering that would have destroyed weaker souls. You've been tested by fire that would have melted hearts that weren't forged in heaven's furnace. You've been pressed by pressure that was specifically calibrated to your spiritual capacity. And now, when King Nebuchadnezzar looked into that furnace, Daniel 3:25 tells us what he saw. I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the fourth looks like a son of the gods. The fourth man, the one who shows up when the heat gets turned up 7 times hotter, the one who walks with you when everyone else steps back, the one who makes lions lie down, who makes fire lose its power to burn, who makes the impossible become inevitable. You haven't been walking alone, chosen one. That fourth man has been with you every step of the way. Every time you should have been consumed but weren't, every time you should have quit but couldn't, every time you should have lost your mind but somehow found peace, that was Jesus walking with you in your fire. The enemy underestimated you. He thought if he turned up the heat high enough, you'd bow down to his golden statues of fear, despair, bitterness, and unforgiveness. He thought if he made the pressure intense enough, you'd compromise your integrity, abandon your faith, curse God and die. But he forgot something crucial. He forgot who was walking in the fire with you. That depression that tried to drown you, you survived it. That financial ruin that was supposed to break you, you rebuilt from nothing. That betrayal that should have made you bitter, you chose forgiveness. That loss that was meant to end your story, you turned it into someone else's salvation. You didn't just survive the last 10 years. You conquered them, not with your own strength, but with supernatural power that flows through surrendered vessels who've learned to trust God in the dark. Every scar on your heart is now a medal of honor. Every tear you shed has become liquid testimony. Every night you didn't sleep has become intercession that's still rising before God's throne like incense. The fire that was meant to consume you has made you fireproof. And now, as we stand at the threshold of August's 2nd week, God is about to show the world what happens when someone who's been through the furnace finally steps into their calling. But first, you need to understand something that will shake you to your core about why this timing isn't coincidental. It's prophetic. Have you been wondering why God's been quiet lately? Like he pulled away right when you needed him to speak? Like you've been praying into empty air, crying out to a heaven that suddenly feels sealed with brass? Dear one, that silence that's been suffocating your prayers, that stillness that's been driving you to desperation, it's not what you think it is. Let me ask you something that might cut deep. When was the last time you heard God's voice clearly? Not just a gentle nudge or a peaceful feeling, but that unmistakable knowing that could only come from the throne room. Some of you are counting months. Others are counting years. And that terrifies you, doesn't it? You've been lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, whispering, God, are you even there anymore? Did I do something wrong? Are you angry with me? Have you moved on to someone else who's more faithful, more worthy, more spiritually mature? But what if I told you something that's going to shatter everything you think you know about divine silence? What if God's quietness isn't his absence, it's his strategy? Think about this for a moment. The teacher never talks during the test. And you, beloved, have been in the middle of the final exam of identity, the most crucial test of your entire spiritual journey. Not a test of your theology or your Bible knowledge, but a test of whether you'll trust him when you can't hear him, love him when you can't feel him, follow him when you can't see him. This silence has been stripping away everything you thought you needed to survive. The constant confirmations, the regular spiritual highs, the predictable patterns of his voice, all of it removed so you could discover something profound. Your faith doesn't depend on his volume. It depends on his character. Job knew this torture intimately. For chapters and chapters, his friends talked, his wife talked, his circumstances screamed, but God, complete silence. Job 23:8-9 captures his anguish. But if I go to the east, he is not there. If I go to the west, I do not find him. When he is at work in the north, I do not see him. When he turns to the south, I catch no glimpse of him. Have you felt that? Like you've searched everywhere for God and found nothing but echoes of your own desperation. But then Job said something that changed everything. Job 23:10. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. Even in the silence, Job understood that God's apparent absence was actually God's deepest work. The silence wasn't punishment, it was refinement. Listen carefully to what Psalm 46:10 really says. Be still and know that I am God. The Hebrew word for be still is rapha. It means to let go, to release, to stop striving. God is saying, stop trying so hard to hear me. Stop working so hard to feel me. Just be still and remember who I am. But here's what's going to revolutionize your understanding of this season. God's silence has been protecting you from voices that would have confused you, misled you, or distracted you from what he's been building in the secret place of your heart. How many times have you asked for direction only to get 10 different opinions from 10 different people? How many times have you sought guidance only to find yourself more confused than when you started? The noise of this world, even well-meaning Christian noise, can drown out the frequency of heaven. So God cleared the channel. He muted everything else, so when he finally speaks, there will be no question about whose voice you're hearing. Isaiah 30:21 promises, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. Not a voice in front of you, leading from a distance. A voice behind you. Intimate, personal, unmistakable. But you can only hear that voice when everything else gets quiet. Jesus understood this principle. Luke 5:16 tells us, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. The Son of God, who could have had constant communion with the Father, still needed sacred silence. He withdrew not because God wasn't speaking, but because the world was so loud he needed to find the place where only heaven's voice could reach him. Your lonely places haven't been abandonment, they've been appointment rooms with the Almighty. But let me tell you what's been happening in the silence that you couldn't see. While you've been wondering where God went, he's been working behind the scenes, orchestrating circumstances, aligning people, opening doors, closing others, preparing the exact moment when his voice breaks through like thunder after the storm. Moses experienced 40 years of silence in the wilderness before the burning bush. Abraham waited 25 years between the promise and Isaac's birth. David hid in caves for years before touching the throne. The silence wasn't God forgetting them, it was God preparing them for assignments so massive they needed to be stripped of everything except absolute trust in his faithfulness. Here's what's going to shock you about your season of silence. You've grown more in these quiet months than you did in years of constant spiritual activity. You've learned to worship without feeling, to trust without seeing, to hope without evidence. Those aren't symptoms of weak faith, they're the hallmarks of mature faith. The silence has been teaching you something the noise never could. God's love isn't measured by his volume. His presence isn't proven by his words. His faithfulness isn't dependent on your feelings. And right now, as we stand on the threshold of this second week of August 2025, something is shifting. The atmospheric pressure is changing. The spiritual climate is pregnant with promise. That silence that's been so deafening, it's about to break like a dam bursting with decades of stored-up revelation. God wasn't ignoring you. He was silencing the noise so you could hear the echo of who you really are. He was clearing the airwaves, so when he speaks into this next season, his voice will cut through everything else like a sword through darkness. The silence is about to end. But the question is, Have you learned to recognize his voice in the stillness, or will you miss it when it comes through the storm? You thought the cave was a coffin, but heaven calls it a construction site. Listen to me, dear one. That dark season you've been walking through, that isolation, that rejection, that feeling like you've been buried alive while everyone else is living their best life, that wasn't God forgetting about you. That was God forging you. You've been carrying a crown in the cave, and you didn't even know it. David understood this mystery. 1 Samuel 22 tells us that when he fled from King Saul, he hid in the cave of Adullam. But here's what will shock you. The same man who was anointed as king was now hiding in a hole in the ground like a common criminal. The oil of kingship was still wet on his forehead, but he was living like a fugitive. Sound familiar? How many times have you felt the calling of God burning in your bones while your circumstances screamed the opposite? How many nights have you wondered if that prophetic word spoken over you years ago was just someone's imagination? How many mornings have you looked in the mirror and asked God, if I'm really chosen, why does my life look like this? But here's what David discovered in that cave that's about to revolutionize your perspective. 1 Samuel 22:2 says, "All those who were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him, and he became their commander. About 400 men were with him. The cave wasn't his punishment, it was his preparation. It wasn't his prison, it was his promotion waiting room. While the world saw a man running for his life, heaven saw a king being trained to lead those who had been broken by the very system he would one day rule. You think you've been disqualified because of your pain. You think your struggles have made you unfit for purpose. You think your scars have cancelled your calling. Let me tell you something that's going to shatter every lie you've believed about yourself. Your cave wasn't a demotion. It was a divine appointment. Every broken person who found their way to your heart, every wounded soul who somehow felt safe enough to share their deepest pain with you, every outcast who saw something in your eyes that said, I understand they weren't accidents, they were assignments. You've been gathering your army in the cave, and you didn't even realize it. But here's what breaks my heart. While David was being prepared to rule, he was tempted to believe he was being punished for presuming. While Esther was being positioned in the palace, she could have thought she was just a lucky orphan girl. While Joseph was rotting in Potiphar's dungeon, he could have concluded that his dreams were delusions. How many times have you been tempted to shrink back from your calling because the process didn't look like the promise? How many times have you questioned whether you heard God correctly because the path led through valleys instead of mountaintops? But Esther 4:14 declares a truth that's going to pierce your soul. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Not for easy times, not for convenient seasons. For this time, for this crisis, for this moment when everything looks impossible and everyone has given up hope. You haven't been disqualified, chosen one. You've been disguised, hidden in plain sight while heaven prepared you for an assignment so significant that it required this exact combination of brokenness and strength, humility and authority, pain and power. Think about it. When Saul was hunting David, he was looking for a king. But David wasn't acting like a king. He was hiding in caves, gathering misfits, living like an outlaw. The very thing that made him look unfit for the throne was the very thing that qualified him to rule with justice and mercy. You've been living undercover, beloved. Not because you're a coward, but because you're carrying something so precious that hell would have destroyed it if you had revealed it too soon. Your obscurity wasn't oversight, it was protection. But something is shifting in the spiritual realm. The second week of August 2025 isn't just marking time, it's marking the end of your hiding season. Heaven is about to remove the camouflage. The disguise is coming off. The cave door is swinging open. You're not behind schedule. You're right on time. You're not broken beyond repair. You've been broken open for purpose. You're not too old to matter. You've been aged to perfection like wine in the cellar, ready to be poured out for such a time as this. The world has been waiting for who you're about to become. This generation doesn't need another perfect person with a perfect life sharing perfect principles. They need someone who's been through hell and came back with heaven's fire still burning in their eyes. They need someone whose scars have become their credentials, whose wounds have become their weapons, whose cave has become their crown. You think you've been overlooked. Number. You've been overshadowed by the Almighty, hidden under His wing until the fullness of time. Psalm 91:1 says, "Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty." Your shadow season wasn't abandonment, it was divine covering. But here's what's going to challenge everything you think you know about yourself. The very thing that made you feel disqualified is the very thing that makes you dangerous to darkness. Your depression taught you compassion that only comes through walking in midnight. Your financial struggles gave you dependence on God that prosperity never could. Your broken relationships showed you the difference between human love and divine love. Every giant you've faced in private has been training you to face the giants that are terrorizing others in public. Every mountain you've moved through prayer has been building the faith muscle you'll need to speak to the mountains that are blocking your generation's breakthrough. You thought you were just surviving, but you were being knighted in the kingdom of God. You thought you were just getting by, but you were graduating from the University of Suffering with a doctorate in trusting God when nothing makes sense. Say it out loud right now. I'm not in hiding, I'm in holding, until heaven says release. The cave wasn't your coffin, dear one, it was your cocoon, and the metamorphosis is complete. It's time to spread wings you didn't even know you had. It's time to wear the crown that was forged in the cave. It's time to take your royal position for such a time as this. If this word pierced something deep in your spirit, if you feel that ancient stirring of destiny awakening in your bones, type, "I'm ready to be revealed" in the comments. Heaven is listening, hell is watching, and the world is waiting for who you're about to become. The question isn't whether you're qualified for what's coming. The question is, are you ready to stop hiding who you've always been? Right now, as you're listening to my voice, there's a door standing directly in front of you. You can't see it with your natural eyes because it's invisible to the fearful, hidden from the doubtful, and completely transparent to those who've convinced themselves they're not worthy. But it's there, solid, real, waiting. This door doesn't respond to your resume. It doesn't care about your age, your bank account, or how many times you've failed. This door only recognizes one thing: the sound of faith taking a step forward when everything in your flesh screams to stay where it's safe. Here's what's going to shake you to your core, chosen one. You've been standing in front of this door for months, maybe years, praying for God to open something new in your life. But the door isn't locked. It never was. Isaiah 22:22 declares, "What He opens no one can shut, and what He shuts no one can open." The door has been open this entire time. You've just been too afraid to reach for the handle. Think about the children of Israel at the Red Sea. Exodus 14:13-14 shows Moses telling them, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." But God's response in verse 15 was shocking. "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move forward. Stop crying. Start moving." You've been praying for breakthrough when God's been waiting for walkthrough. You've been asking Him to change your circumstances when He's been waiting for you to change your position. You've been begging heaven to move when the Almighty has been waiting for you to move first. There's a divine setup happening in the spirit realm right now. Angels are positioned, resources are aligned, connections are waiting to be activated. But heaven operates on one principle that will revolutionize everything you think you know about timing. God doesn't move on your readiness, He moves on your movement. When Elijah told the widow in 1 Kings 17:13 to make him bread first with her last handful of flour, she had a choice. She could have said, "I need to wait until I have more," but she moved with what she had, and her oil never ran dry. The miracle wasn't in her abundance, it was in her action. How long have you been waiting for more courage before you make that call? More money before you take that step? More certainty before you walk through that door? More time before you forgive that person? more healing before you help someone else. But here's the shocking truth that's going to demolish every excuse you've been carrying. The door doesn't open when you have more. It opens when you move with what you already possess. Peter didn't walk on water because he felt confident. He walked because Jesus said, "Come," and Peter moved his feet. Matthew 14:29. The miracle happened in the movement, not in the mental preparation. Right now, angels don't respond to your confusion. They don't mobilize around your uncertainty. Angels respond to clarity. They respond to the sound of someone saying, "God said it. I believe it. I'm moving." You want to know why you felt stuck? You want to know why breakthrough feels like it's always just out of reach? Because you've been trying to figure out the entire staircase when God only gives you one step at a time. Psalm 119-105 says, "Your word is a lamp for my feet, a light on my path." Not a spotlight illuminating the whole journey. A lamp for your feet, just enough light for the next step. But here's where this gets supernatural. In this second week of August 2025, the spiritual atmosphere has shifted. The door that required tremendous faith to approach 6 months ago now swings open with the slightest touch. What used to take years of preparation now takes one act of obedience. Daniel knew this principle. When the decree went out that no one could pray except to the king, Daniel didn't have a committee meeting. He didn't wait for perfect timing. Daniel 6:10 tells us he went to his room, opened his windows toward Jerusalem, and prayed just as he had before. He moved. The lion's den became his promotion to prime minister. The door you've been staring at, that opportunity you've been afraid to pursue, that calling you've been running from, that relationship you need to end, that conversation you need to have, that business you need to start, that ministry you need to launch, it's not opening when you feel ready. It's opening when you move. Your movement is the key that unlocks what God has been holding in reserve. Think about Abraham. Genesis 12:1 records God's command. "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." Notice God didn't show him the land first. He said, "Move, and I'll show you where you're going on the way." That's faith. That's the currency of the kingdom. That's what opens doors that logic says should remain closed. But I need to tell you something that's going to create holy urgency in your spirit. This door, this opportunity, this divine window, it's not permanent. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." There are seasons when doors stand wide open, and there are seasons when those same doors are sealed shut. We're in an open season right now, but seasons change. Weather patterns shift. What's available today might not be available tomorrow. You've been hesitating because you're waiting for a sign, waiting for confirmation, waiting for the perfect moment. But what if your hesitation is actually the sign? What if the fact that you're still thinking about it, still feeling that pull, still hearing this message, means the door is open and waiting? The enemy's greatest weapon against God's chosen ones isn't temptation. It's delay. It's convincing you that tomorrow is better than today. It's whispering that you need just a little more time, a little more preparation, a little more certainty. But certainty is the enemy of faith. If you could see the entire path, you wouldn't need God to light your steps. Here's the prophetic word that's burning in my spirit for you right now. The door isn't opening when you're ready. The door is opening when you move. And the movement doesn't have to be massive. It just has to be faithful. Pick up the phone, send the text, have the conversation, take the first step, sign the paper, book the flight, make the investment. The door is waiting for the sound of your faith in motion. But the question that will echo through eternity is this: will you step through the door that's already open? Or will you spend the rest of your life wondering what was waiting on the other side? Beloved chosen one, as we come to the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to remember 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the days ahead. First, your pain was never punishment, it was positioning. Every betrayal, Every closed door, every moment you felt forgotten was God preparing you for this prophetic turning point. Like Joseph in the pit, like David in the cave, like Jesus in the tomb, your darkest moments were actually divine setups for your greatest breakthrough. Second, the door you've been praying for is already open. It's not waiting for your perfection, your readiness, or your complete understanding. It's waiting for your movement. One step of faith unlocks what years of hesitation cannot. The second week of August, 2025, isn't just another date, it's your divine appointment with destiny. Third, you are not walking this path alone. Right now, as these words settle into your spirit, the same God who parted the Red Sea is moving obstacles you can't even see. The same God who shut the lions' mouths is silencing every voice that has spoken defeat over your life. And beyond his presence, you have a community right here, right now, of fellow believers who understand your journey, who've walked similar paths, and who are ready to stand with you in prayer. Look at these comments below. See these hearts connecting. Feel these spirits resonating. You've found your tribe, chosen one. We're not just viewers on a screen, we're family in the faith, united by the same calling, strengthened by the same hope, empowered by the same God. But let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your heart. Now that you know the door is open, now that you understand your pain has purpose, now that you've heard heaven calling your name, what will you do with this moment? Will you step forward in faith, or will you let fear convince you to stay where it's familiar? Before I release you into your destiny, let me place my hand on your shoulder through these words and pray over your life with the authority of someone who has walked this path and witnessed God's faithfulness. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has stayed with us through this entire message. Lord, you see their hearts. You know their struggles. You've counted every tear they've cried in the midnight hours when no one was watching. Tonight, I pray that you would silence every voice of doubt that has whispered, "You're not enough. It's too late. God has forgotten you." Father, breathe fresh life into their weary spirits. Where they feel exhausted, renew their strength like eagles. Where they feel lost, order their steps. Where they feel invisible, let them know they are seen, loved, and chosen for such a time as this. God, I pray for supernatural doors to swing wide open in their lives. Financial doors that have been sealed for years, relational doors that seemed impossible to unlock, health doors that medical reports said would never open. Let August become their month of breakthrough, their season of divine acceleration. Protect their families, Lord. Surround their children and grandchildren with your angels. Give them peace that surpasses understanding, especially on sleepless nights when worry tries to steal their rest. Let them feel your presence so strongly that fear has no place to land. For those carrying physical pain, touch their bodies with healing power. For those wrestling with depression, flood their minds with your joy. For those facing financial pressure, open unexpected streams of provision. For those feeling isolated, connect them with divine relationships that will strengthen their faith and support their calling. Most of all, Father, give them the courage to walk through the door that's already open. Let them know that their best days aren't behind them, they're ahead of them. Let them understand that you're not done writing their story. This is not their sunset, this is their sunrise. In Jesus' mighty name, I seal this prayer and release your abundant blessings over every life represented here. Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share how this message has impacted your heart. What door is God calling you to walk through? What fear do you need to surrender? What step of faith is He asking you to take? Don't hold back. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to take their own step forward. If this message has stirred something deep in your spirit, please share it with someone who needs to hear these words. There's someone in your life right now, a family member, a friend, a neighbor who's been feeling forgotten, who's been questioning their purpose, who needs to know that God still has plans for their life. Be the vessel that carries this hope to them. And before you go, if this is your first time here, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because every week we're diving deeper into God's heart for His chosen ones. We're building something beautiful together, a community where faith grows, hope is restored, and destinies are fulfilled. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for letting these words penetrate the sacred chambers of your soul. Thank you for being brave enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, your greatest chapter is still being written. The door is open, beloved. The path is lit. The community is here, and God is faithful. Now go forth and step into the magnificent destiny that has been calling your name since before time began. Until we meet again, walk in faith, rest in His love, and remember, you are chosen, you are loved, and you are never ever alone. God bless you abundantly.